Yes, is the Navy and Marine Corps Mars still in existence?
Yes and no. Officially, the only Mars units anymore is the Army and Air Force. Now, on that patch over there, we have not changed the patch out of respect for the units you mentioned, Coast Guard, Navy, Marines. And there are some still legitimate stations that actively work. Some of them are guard units. There are two active duty units in the form of base support teams that still operate. One up near Groton, and the other one I think is in San Diego. At any rate, they still exist. They can exist at their own pleasure, and they operate according with regular Air Force Army requirements. But yeah.
I've got three actually. You had mentioned that the Mars folks dropped down to the amateur band. You know, I play in the Air Force Day, and we use split. Is there any reason they actually Mars folks will transmit in the amateur bands rather than in their own bands, and everybody runs split because it functions the same way?
The only reason that we do that, we don't do it normally for our normal nets or anything. The only time we do that, when it's stipulated in the message that comes to us, called start the exercise. Prior to that, we get an op order, you know, military's gotta have an acronym for everything. And in that, it will tell the parameters in which we operate. Those parameters have already been, where needed, have already been coordinated and approved by the DOD, the FCC, FEMA, whoever it is that is involved in that. In this case, it's been approved by the FCC for us using our Mars call sign to jump into the amateur bands to converse with all of you.
Okay.
Now, we're not allowed, when you ask us for our QTH, I can tell you Oklahoma, but I can't tell you Midwest City. Likewise, when I ask you for your QTH, I will always say, what's your QTH? State only. And every now and then somebody will come back, oh, I'm in Albany, New York. Okay, New York, you know. But so that's under the PII test that you take, personal identification, personal information identification, whatever the hell it stands for. Where you learn what you can, should, and so forth. And the op board will also tell us in their amateur call sign, Mars call sign only, accept only, state, it's those kind of things. That's how we jump into that. And then we exit, and it's only for a valid time during this exercise.
Okay, second question was, you mentioned 60 meters. Are you using the channelized stuff that we use, or were you anywhere in the frequency and we have to catch you?
It's the same frequencies on 60 meter, same thing.
And then the third one was more of a technical question. I had originally, when I bought my 7300, they asked me if I wanted to go ahead and do the Mars at that time. And I said, well, I don't understand the technology, why I shouldn't. And the guy said, well, when, in this case, Japan built the radio, they built the filters in for the amateur bands. And if you open it up,
requirement.
you open it up, those filters are still set for the amateur band, and you may get some terrible filtering problems outside the amateur band and even mess up the amateur band filters. Can you comment on that, yay, nay, or?
If it's one of the newer radios, as in like the last 10 years or so, I'll defer to what the text said, but you ain't hearing anything about it on the radio because it doesn't appear to be a problem.
Because I chose not to, because I didn't want to mess up the.
Well, if you'd have chose to do it, he'd have probably asked you for your Mars license.
No, it was original purchase. They didn't care.
That's what I'm saying.
Bill, well, I've got a radio that I used on Mars, the old TS440. The Mars frequencies are close enough to the amateur band open it up, you do not affect the amateur filters. What he's talking about is if you decide to go instead of between 7 and 14, you jump down into the middle where there is no amateur band, you're not gonna operate. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So in other words, when you operate as a Mars operator, you're within probably 25 to 50 kilohertz
Actually more.
of
Got it.
the ham bands, so your filters are still effective. His comment was, if you decide to become a pirate, and you're out there in Never Never Land operating,
We don't wanna
your
know about it.
filters will not work.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't be a P5.
Any more?
Don't try to pretend to be a P5.
Okay.
I was just wondering, what if you live in a HOA, you know, no antennas of any kind, and you say, listen, I'm a member of the Air Force, Mars, and we need an antenna up so I can communicate. I wonder if that would supersede the HOA restriction.
Federally, yes. You just hand them a copy of PRB1 and say, I will keep my antenna. Now, you also have to keep it safe. You don't put it right next to the fence, a 50-foot tower, 5 foot from the fence, where if it goes that way, it destroys your neighbor. So you gotta, there's a compromise here for the safety and welfare of the neighbors around you. Not the RF, but the physical stuff. Having said that, PRB1 authorizes you to put up your antenna. Now, I might add, Tom put out a good piece of information. It has to do with some legislation that just got passed that's gonna further say,
passed.
these guys have a right to be there, leave them alone.
Not pass, he just presented it.
So,
Well, I think
You have to
I think it's a
live there.
bill. I think a bill that's just been introduced, it hasn't passed.
that further clarifies, is that the right word? PRB1. But they both go together and make it a little more powerful, that they cannot deny it to you. They can deny it to you on safety, like I said, if you build your 50-foot tower or whatever right next to the fence, where if it goes that way, takes out your neighbor or whatever, yeah, they probably legitimate stance, but if you keep it within the safety, physical safety boundaries, they can't deny it. And I've fought several battles on that as a HOA president, and one knows. Actually, you may not remember it, but you helped me. When I first moved in, took over the HOA, he helped me tell the board to go to hell.
Sir.
And then he put up his tower. Yeah.
So of those military run base, whatever you called it, locations,
Base support team, yeah.
base support teams, what % of those people are in the military, either military or civilian, but employed by the military?
100%.
Yeah.
With a caveat. I ran my own base support at McGuire, and then out here at Tinker before I retired. The base support team is just what it sounds like. It's military base supporting team for Mars. They will help provide the antenna, the installation, the equipment, the upkeep, all that. Many of the members on base will probably migrate, if you will, to becoming Mars and operate the station. In those cases where it's not, as commander, I can let Tom come in. You're ex-military though, right? You military?
No.
I can let you come in and be an operator on the station. By name. And, cause you need that to get through the gate to get in most places. But, yeah, civilians can operate the base support teams.
But day to day, normal, it's.
Base operator, military operator.